So, today here we are trying to review Unit 1 of Upstream Proficiency, and we are starting with the types of communication. So, looking at this scheme, Bogdan, what are the main types of communication that are usually defined?
Usually we define verbal communication, non-verbal communication, written and visual, as well.
So from your knowledge, from the back of your knowledge, what is the difference and how are these elements connected with each other?
Well, speaking of these 4 types, verbal communication is used via our language, pronunciation, and using our articulatory apparatus and other specific organs of speech. Non-verbal communication, it includes many specific things you do, or your place of location, gestures, mimics, and other stuff, right? And it also may include even context as well, I guess. For example, where are you located, how are you placed in this space, and so on. And speaking of written communication, it's type when you just using your written messages to convey some thoughts. And visual type of communication usually is because with pictures, with some graphics, with some even a primitive type of like look here, and you can perceive that.
Absolutely. Like you see that I am using visual communication now to support my message, because I'm not sure how well you can get it when we are online. If we were offline, I would probably be more sure in it. And let's look at what communication is with the explanations. Okay, Anya, please explain us about visual communication and its connection with verbal, non-verbal, and written communication.
So as for visual communication, we should ask others before including visuals, which I think it means either like other people comprehend what is written, or maybe if we work in groups. Right?
It's mostly about considering your audience. It's about the moment when we don't have to substitute our message with a visual. A visual is only good when it adds value, and the visual that we're using now, it adds some value to our speaking, because I'm not sure how good your speaking would be without the visuals. I don't want your speaking to be simple. I want it to be at the higher level, higher to what you already do. So that's why I use visuals to support. And an important moment here is about clearness and easiness. So they need to
understand.
Okay, Anya.
So visuals maybe need to be very like short and up to point, like straight to point, very straightforward, and also not a lot of text. And in presentation, as we see, just should be just the main points. So like thesis.
Okay.
And also considers the audience, as we already said, and add value. And in general, of course, visuals, they also influence our understanding. Not sure about nonverbal, but as for verbal, let's say if we have already some visuals, we can build our communication verbally by using visual, and also we can build our written communication using verbal information that we have, let's say, on board, if it's a presentation or in class or during the workshop, and so on.
Okay, very good. Now look at these 4 ways of communication, these 4 forms, and think of the advice that could be meaningful to you personally. So that would mean something for you about verbal, non-verbal, visual, and written. I give you 1 minute, so please think of it. Okay, Pauline, what is important for you, and what would you take as an advice from this?
Take this advice, maybe I can pay attention to maybe the types of learners. Maybe if I speak about different types of people, so we can have like visual, audio learners, kinesthetic learners. So I think it's important when we like take some task due to their needs.
Very good, Pauline, perfect. So you mean that when you consider your learners, you may also consider the style, the type of communication you use. Yeah, perfect, thank you. Bogdan?
I think in my case, one of the most important would be in written, strive for simplicity, because I usually like to make long read stories or just sophisticated sentences, just to include everything that I have in mind at the moment. Yeah, and then I should just revise the sentence and divide it into parts, and it usually takes more time. Yeah, it's not really effective.
Okay, yeah, and you know that modern people, they don't really comprehend long reads, so you definitely need to make them shorter. Yeah, thank you, Bogdan. Good. Anya?
Maybe in verbal communication, what I see the interesting part is to avoid industry jargon and avoid filler words, which is very popular among teachers, right, and people who speak language maybe in advanced level, because it's a common thing that we see around us. And also to consider maybe such things that are connected to verbal communication as tempo, the voice, the speech that we use. So all these factors we also should consider, and to make our teaching and learning process more efficient.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yeah, and the next slide, it just complements the one that we've just seen. It's again about speech and writing, about the language, and also about the non-verbal communication. Now we'll make a small detour into non-verbal communication. You had it in the textbook, and tell me about the components of non-verbal communication, which are very often mentioned in the textbooks, but also about the components that you feel you recognize in other people. Pauline.
Maybe sometimes if we speak about their tones, yes, maybe some stresses, if they want to pay some attention to the part of the sentence, for example, why it's so important for them. And maybe when they can change their tone due to their mood.
Okay, yes, so you pay attention to the tone of people. It affects how you perceive them. Yeah, Anya, you please.
I would say is gestures and the posture, the way the person represents himself, like during the speech, the way maybe you move, your face expressions, the body language.
Okay, yeah, you know that scientists say that up to 90% of information can be taken from nonverbal clues, which means that your gestures, where you are, how you talk, tells so much about you without your presentation. Yeah, Bogdan, please.
Well, as it was previously mentioned, and I usually see gesture, mimics, body language, posture, something like tone in general, like is it fast, is it slow, is it loud, is it too incoherent, for example. Yeah, so in I think that's it usually.
Okay, yeah, as teachers, what do we need nonverbal language for? What do we build with our students at the very, very beginning of the lesson? How is it called?
Kind of interaction, I don't know.
No. We start with building a rapport. Rapport, R-A-P-P-R-T. Rapport, I'll go back to it further. So rapport means when people start trusting you and when you have this connection with them. So usually the nonverbal clues play a great role in rapport building and your tone as well. So good. So now looks at these types of nonverbal communication and try to tell me about each of them. So I hope you have already learned about them. Yeah. So, okay, Bogdan, start with facial expressions and silence.
Okay, so facial expression and silence, they usually are really important because when we are communicating with someone, yeah, we will usually look in their eyes, in their mouth, and we will take as much information as possible out of it. Yeah, and on this picture we can see mimes, for example, and they are well known for expressing themselves distinctively and telling a story, yeah, with their gestures, postures, and mimics, yeah, particularly. So facial expression is something like a passport for us, yeah, and for our own intentions as well. And speaking of silence, it's also a great tool because it can vary in different cultures, and it can be a significant marker of your interest or disinterest in your co-speaker. Yeah, and so I think silence can also mean like lack of knowledge or an excessive amount of it, depending on where you would put it. Yeah, so in my opinion, they are essential.
Thank you. Of course, this may also be very theatrical, yeah? So you may prone people to communication. You may push people into communication with your silence. Okay, Anya, please talk about vocal intonations.
Okay, so as for vocal intonations, we maybe can identify how the person feels and what emotions he or she has. So let's say if the voice is very low and kind of confident, and if you're comfortable to speak with this person, right, you can say that he or she is a confident speaker. But as for people who use the high voice,
the higher pitch of voice.
The high pitch of voice, yes, and sometimes even start to yell or shout, of course, it's not okay to continue the communication with such person, especially if he has a lot of emotions. So, of course, the vocal intonations mean a lot. And we can identify the mood of the person, the way he or she feels, and the way we can react and respond in a proper way as well. So sometimes maybe it's even better not to interfere and not even to start the communication with this person.
Okay, yeah. So it also may be a kind of warning for us, not
Yeah. A warning and maybe even a sign, maybe just like we can say that it's also an informal way to identify the character of this person, the way this person feels, and just live in the environment and communicate with other people. We can, yeah, we can maybe identify his or her character by the vocal intonations.
Thank you. Polina, please talk about haptics or touch, the importance of it, whether it's important or not, and
so haptics or touch, it means that you can support other person, like some kind of hugging. And I think it's very important when you want to have some warm and trustworthy like relationship with other people.
Not always. For example, when you come to Spain, people start kissing you immediately, not after COVID probably, but still. The people that you don't know, they would kiss you. And this kind of haptics, it's not only about touch, it's just about coming closer and touching your body in any type of a touch. So sometimes it may be embarrassing between cultures. Okay, yeah.
It can be connected with a person. Maybe. Do you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you. Okay.
Okay, and sometimes people, they are like not satisfied with the touching, and especially, you know, that in Ukraine we are not so, you know, like trust other people as well as in other countries.
Okay, thank you, Pauline. And now let's look at communication styles. And I will pause after that. I will pause the recording after that, and you will work on your own for some time, and then you will report. Yeah. So important elements of communication. They are sociability, when you want to please a person, and dominance, when you need to overcome a person, when you need to be higher in communication. All this all these important moments of communication, dominance and sociability, they form different forms of communication, which are passive communication, when you are ready to lose and let somebody win, when you win and the person wins, when both people lose, and when I win and you lose. Yeah. So these styles in communication are also very much connected with what you say, with how you act, and what you finally get from this communication. But it is important to notice that any communication is also built on your needs, because we communicate out of a need. Yeah? So there is a certain need, and how we perceive our needs, and how we protect our needs, how we achieve our goals is also important in communication. So right now, please try to Google this communication styles and try to look at these elements of communication and how they differ. They are needs, then hearing other person, being treated fairly, then being able to share what you need to share. All these elements make communication successful. So I will give you 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, I'll be back and I will listen to your reports. Clear?
Okay.
If you have any questions, you don't. Yeah. So, okay.